This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Satellite Book Club Seminar Series. This is session number 51. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you're staying well. We got a great presentation today, the TOWR-S RPM version 21. So we're going to provide a spotlight on what's coming to AWIPS soon. Just a few reminders before we get started that this session is being recorded and there will be an opportunity for Q&A after the presentation. Please feel free to ask your questions in the chat room or indicate you have a question and we will pass the mic to you. We're always looking for future presenters, so if you have an application you'd like to share with your colleagues, please get in touch with us. And if you're looking for training materials that you may be unaware of or are unavailable, Brian Mata, Office of the Chief Learning Officer, can direct you to the training materials you need. Thanks to the TOWR-S team, particularly Kashad Bowman, Office of the Chief Learning Officer, GOZAR, and GPSS for their support of the Satellite Book Club. They do a lot of good work behind the scenes. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce John Evans and Lee Byerly, our presenters today, also members of the TOWR-S team who do a lot of hard work, important work, bringing satellite data to the field. So thanks for tuning in. John Evans supports the National Weather Service Office of Observations to streamline forecaster access to satellite data products. He previously worked with the Joint Polar Satellite System and has led numerous projects with NASA, NOAA, and others, emphasizing open, scalable, and interoperable data systems. He's joined by Lee Byerly, who's been part of the TOWR-S team since 2015, supporting the GOZAR program and Office of Observations and the transition of new satellite capabilities into operations. He also supports the AWIPS program office in the National Center's AWIPS transition project. So thank you, John and Lee, for joining us today, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, so the sun is shining, the cicadas are singing, and it's time for another TOWR-S RPM. This one is version 21, and we'll give you a brief rundown. We've done this a couple times before, so that some of this may seem familiar as to what an RPM is and isn't. And then we'll get into the specifics of this particular RPM and what it supports and what to expect if and when you install it. So we'll bring out a brief description, overview of this one, and then sort of point you to further resources for how to install it and then things to check after installing this RPM. So on slide 3, just a couple of points of vocabulary at the top. TOWR-S is the Total Operational Weather Readiness Satellites team in the Weather Service Office of Observations and the GOZAR program. An RPM is, if you look it up, an RPM stands for an RPM Package Manager. A recursive acronym began with the Red Hat Linux company. It's a way of bundling files for deployment on Linux systems. So that's what this is, a bundle of files that allow you to configure AWIPS quickly and relatively easily to increase the agility of AWIPS, to streamline new capabilities, the deployment of new capabilities in between the larger baseline releases of the main AWIPS software system. TOWR-S configurations, most of them end up somewhere down the line, getting included in the main AWIPS mainstream baseline software. So the content of these TOWR-S RPMs is based on quite a variety of sources, in particular input from the user community, such as exchanges like this one, the Satellite Book Club presentations, and other kinds of exchanges looking at different satellite products and evaluating them, looking at input from science teams and software developer teams upstream in NESDIS, as well as looking at products with users interactively. So that's where this comes from. These RPMs undergo a fair bit of testing and early evaluation, and in particular we want to offer our thanks to the people who are the evaluators of this RPM v21. You see them listed here. Several of them have already installed it and found it to be working. Others are anticipating doing that in the coming few days. We also want to make sure we thank the contributions from regional focal points, APO, NCF, and the OPPSD staff at Weather Service headquarters. So typically, an RPM contains a number of new or changed configuration files. AWIPS is very configurable, as I'm sure you know. Configurations to edx for routing incoming products to particular plugins, configurations to the menus in Cave, color maps, style rules, that sort of thing, to handle new data products in particular, or to kind of rearrange the menu structure to make it more workable. So you can see here a list of the file types typically included in one of these TOWR-S RPM bundles. It's worth pointing out that this does not change the baseline AWIPS, but changes your site level configurations. And when present, these configurations override the baseline configurations. It's also worth pointing out that these RPM bundles are cumulative. So if you install the version 21 RPM, it includes the content from the previous version 20, which itself included the content from version 19, etc. Now, installing RPM may also, in some cases, there may be some content that's been outdated, a product no longer exists, or conversely, maybe some capability has become a part of the AWIPS baseline and is no longer needed in RPM. So sometimes these RPMs will omit something, remove something that used to be present. A little bit of feedback there. Might want to mute your mic. Okay. So let's get to the specifics of this TOWR-S RPM v21, which we're rolling out this week. I guess it was staged via the network control facility starting yesterday. One of the things that we're really excited about is availability, the support for a new locally derived CIRA Geocolor product for a new set of sectors at full resolution. And Lee's been in the kind of the midst of interactions with various users and evaluators on this product. And Lee, if you're available, you want to chime in? Well, while we get Lee linked in here, I'll just kind of run through the basics of what this this offers. The RPM, this is actually, parenthetically, I should say, this first bullet here, the capability for producing CIRA Geocolor composites locally at each AWIPS site is not, strictly speaking, part of the RPM itself. What is in the RPM is support for the Geocolor, locally produced Geocolor product in menus and color tables and so on. So it, the RPM provides those capabilities so you can access the results of this local app running alongside AWIPS. So this results in much the same product as many people have been getting from CIRA, this Geocolor product. But instead of it being a new data stream from CIRA, it produces it live on site from the incoming channels, that imagery channels that are already being received through SBN. So it provides this kind of this color compositing on the fly at each site, and this in particular relieves some of the data flow pressure on the regional LDM network channels. And this also opens up the possibility of doing this at full resolution and making it available not just for a few sectors, Conus as currently is the case, but makes it available for full disk and several mesos, the Alaska region, Puerto Rico, and particularly the full disk resolution is at 6 kilometer resolution, and it's a ½ kilometer for all the other sectors. So this is something of an improvement of the a pretty significant improvement over the currently available product, additional sectors, full resolution, by making it locally produced. And by the way, it has a kind of a system level benefit.
Okay.
Oh, there's Lee. Hi, Lee.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, John. Yep. I appreciate your running through that, and I just wanted to add in for that. We're in the middle of the evaluative phase with a few sites on this, and we'll be rolling this procedure out for getting the Geocolor. And we have a couple more slides coming up on this, including reference back to Paul Schlatter's presentation last week. So that's one of the big highlights and main rollouts for this version, as well as, and I'll pass it over to you here again for the second one, the meso-fire hotspot here.
Okay. So I need to pick up the pace a little here. This we don't have the luxury of giving the full color story on these some of these products. The GOES-R meso sector fire hotspot product is something that's newly available, and the RPM provides support for that. And we'll see a few visual glimpses of what that looks like. And then this RPM also sets the table, shall we say, prepares for the expected July activation on SBN of the GOES West, GOES 17 fog and low stratus product. So that data won't be arriving just yet, but this RPM prepares your AWIPS installation for it when it does arrive, and we expect the July timeframe. Additional features of this TOWR-S RPM you can see listed here. It equips your AWIPS installation to handle the new GOES-R Enterprise products, in particular cloud top phase and land surface temperature, and a few others most likely down the road. Some style rules have been enhanced to include better information in the legend about some of these products. The way that imagery combos from the pair of satellites from JPSS, NOAA 20 and S-NPP, that handling is a little bit more elegant thanks to some work that Bill Line did in just making more intuitive views as you time step through these polar orbiter swath data. Corrects the way that these units are handled for the GOES fire area product, and includes the new well-loved color map from the CIRA slider for shortwave IR. We should also warn you on the next slide that note that some additional changes in this RPM include removing some menu entries. For example, the Conus package GLM, that data is no longer being provided. Instead, you can look for full disk GLM under the full disk menu. It also removes menu entries for the GOES East-West combos that were available the last several months. That unfortunately triggers sort of a underlying bug in AWIPS that the developer team is working to fix. So in the meantime, you can just use each of these views individually and overlay them yourself. We also removed support for the SCATSAT Sea Surface Winds product. The satellite that hosted SCATSAT is no longer in operation, so that data is not available and won't be. And for now anyway, it comments out, it hides the menu entries for the new GOES-R cryosphere products. The data flow for those has been turned off, given that we're sort of out of the winter season and that winter evaluation has concluded. But because they're just commented out, they may be restored down the line without much to do as we look to migrate these products into a more operational state. As we said, these RPMs are cumulative, so just noting here the things that are retained in V21 from the preceding V20, GLM full disk tiles, the Turbulence product, the VIIRS active fires product, some products from the Japanese GCOM AMSR 2 sensor, and the ATMS VIIRS products from NOAA 20. And you can, I guess we'll be circulating a link to these slides. You can click on the links here to find more about that in the prior November 19 Satellite Book Club presentation and the recording. Through some visual views, finally, after all that text, new menu items include the fire hotspot and product for meso sectors, including a fire mask that allows a better understanding of what you're looking at when you look at fire hotspots. And then if you were to click somewhere in the middle of this view, there's RGB composites. That now has a new entry seen in the next slide for the CIRA Geocolor composite. And here's a view of what this looks like. We had a nice spotlight on it last week in the Satellite Book Club. And there's a link to that presentation at the bottom of this slide here, as you can see. So that provides a nice sort of, shall we say, bird's eye view of the of the regions. An additional capability we mentioned here is the mesoscale fire hotspot from GOES-R. And here are some views on, the way that the fire mask provides a bit more information about what we're looking at. So we have different classes of fires: saturated fire, cloudy fire, high, medium, and low probability, and then category of processed fire. And I think next we have, here's a nice animation indicating the utility of the fire product, and as well as the color-coded fire categories from this fire mask flag. The next slide highlights how, there's a smoke plume that might not have been quite as easy to note without the presence of this fire mask flag. And then it also helps to kind of sort out what we're seeing, clouds versus other things. And in particular on slide 15 is a fire that is kind of tagged as a cloud-covered fire. So that it allows us to make a better use of the fire information in these mesoscale fire products. And by the way, this fire mask information is now available not just for the meso fire hotspots, but for the other sectors as well, Conus and full disk. And last but not least, here's a glimpse of what the fog and low stratus product will look like from the GOES-17 satellite. It's been available from GOES-16 for some time. We expect it to become available over SBN NOAA port in the July timeframe. There's a question?
Oh, hey, John, you there?
Yep.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to, this is Lee, I just wanted to extend back to the fire product real quickly and send our thanks to Southern Region, Chad Gravel, and Norman, WFO, Todd Lindley, Aaron Anderson, and of course the development team at CIMSS for the fire. This came about because of some advocacy for having mesoscale fire information, and this result here is just basically inputting their work and suggestions on getting some more confidence information out there through the mesoscale. So thanks to them. There's still training materials and some other things going on with this particular feature. And we're showing some of the things that they put together over the last few months as we got this going out over the LDM. So this is one of the few GOES-17 products you'll see under derived products, unless we're using data delivery, because the GOES-17, the majority of those are not out over the SBN currently. But this, of course, is available through that LDM feed with this release.
Okay, thank you, Lee. Yeah, this has been a nice collaborative effort amongst quite a group of participants. Now, as for, how do you get this RPM? It's staged for you at each site, and there are links to instructions on the VLab, the new VLab in the cloud, to install it. Step one is to uninstall any previous RPM you may have, install the new one, and then update the LDM configurations to make sure that you're configured to receive the data that the new RPM supports. The simplicity of this 1, 2, 3 list maybe belies some of the steps that you'll see at those links. For example, making sure that you save any local configurations you may have put on your own at your own AWIPS site, and there are two in particular that are fairly commonly adjusted by various sites. And so there's a reminder in that installation process to do that, to check it at your site. Now, after the number 3 here, worth noting the Geocolor installation prep. We're working on that procedure, and we'll post it there when it's complete. that is still kind of some of the final details being worked out.
Thanks, John. Yep, that's right. We're Lee again here. We're working with Central Regions, Andy Just, Matt Foster at OPG, as well as Mark Leffelvine, Western Region, and Mike Stavish has been a big help here in getting this out. And we'll have more detailed instructions for those early next week as we go through and do those initial checkouts with them this week.
Okay. Post-installation, as usual, just kind of check for the new menu item in Cave, make sure that the new products are arriving over LDM. Some of these products will be new, and you also want to check that additional products are continuing to arrive. And as usual, please feel free to reach out to our team for any questions or assistance, questions you may have or assistance you may need. The next slide just points you to a section in the installation guide that offers some additional links for additional steps or questions you may have. There's a new frequently asked questions list that I think you'll find quite helpful. And that's all at that link you see here on the VLab TOWR-S RPM section of the VLab. And I think that's it. We've added a link to those frequently asked questions here, but of course we welcome your questions either via email or in the TOWR-S room on NWS chat. What follows this in the slides is some visuals just kind of reminding you of products that remain supported by this RPM that we've previously talked about in previous RPMs. So with that, I'll invite Lee to offer any parting words, and then we'll welcome your questions.
Okay, I don't hear Lee.
Yeah. Hey, this is Lee here. Did you want me to answer? I can see here Ron Murphy's question about installation. If you'd like, I could jump into that.
Sure. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. In fact, that's one of the items we wanted to emphasize a couple charts back on the installation procedure. Please do go ahead and when you're ready, do that update, because all of the features are ready to go there with the RPM, including the VIIRS, and you get the geocolor configurations and menu items. And then it's independent of some extra steps for the geocolor, which we're still going to add into the procedures. So you can check back to those procedures to update that part early next week.
Okay, great. Thank you, John and Lee, for that presentation. We'll now have opportunity for some questions. Kashad has also posted a link to a feedback form. We'd appreciate if you have any remarks. Please let us know. If you have to drop off, even though we will have some Q&A coming up here, I hope you'll be able to join us next week, Thursday, June 3rd. At 12 noon, Dr. Chris Schultz from NASA Sport will present on the fusion of remote sensing data sets to anticipate lightning for impact-based decision support services. So please contact the TOWR-S team for questions about the SBC or configuration of satellite products, including this TOWR-S RPM. More information is going to follow about the Satellite Book Club, an email from the TOWR-S team. So with that, I'm going to go to a couple questions now, and if there's any audience members that have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. First question is regarding the legacy GOES 17 menus under satellite. When will those be able to be removed?
GOES 17? You mean?
GOES 15, I'm sorry.
GOES 15. GOES 15. Okay, well, the reason those are still in there, I guess we don't have a slide about that, is that the GOES 15 still remains capable of producing data. It's still up there. And there's a good possibility that it will be called back into service in the kind of August to September timeframe, when we expect GOES 17 to be fairly degraded. And so those menus are still in there. But then I think after that, that may be the last, the swan song perhaps. Sometime after that, it seems likely we would be able to remove those menu items for GOES 15.
GOES T, hopefully to become GOES 18, will be launching in December. Still on track. So look for more information regarding that as that date approaches. Quick question here coming in on the chat from Lee Krantz, University of Wisconsin, says he's asked this before, so it's a second time question, but will those of us with standalone installs, the cooperative institutes, still should we still be using the Tower Pro method of RPM building and installation?
Hey, Lee, thanks for the question. Absolutely. You can still use that method to do that there at the cooperative development sites. We're not doing that for the field one. We provide the prepared RPM file ready to go, but you can definitely still use that, and I can help you, we can help you out with which collection to look for there for 21.
Thank you. Lee says thank you. Next question coming here from Todd Carter. Are any GOES S17 derived products like fire area power coming available with this build?
Oh, thanks, Todd. So with this update, those meso fire sectors are available across the regional feed for GOES 16 and GOES 17, mesos 1 and 2 at 1 minute cadence. So those are available, but other than the Pacus wind vectors, the derived motion winds, there's still some discussion as to when and which products are going to be getting out on the SDN for those. So yeah, you'll still see some blank menus there under derived products in doing checkouts because of that. There was a saturation reached when the 17 products came along on the SDN. There were other competing things, and so they didn't follow suit quickly as the GOES 16 derived products did. So yeah, appreciate the question, and the fires again will be available.
Thank you. Next question also about the fires. Is the fire mask available only for the meso sector, or will we see it for other sectors as well?
Right, so that will be available through for all the different sectors, even though it's being introduced at the same time as the new meso fire product.
Okay, great. Next question here. If a site hasn't updated the TOWR-S RPM in a long time, can you remind us whether that's an issue or not, or do they have to have prior versions installed?
Shouldn't be an issue. These are cumulative. They kind of what do they call it in other contexts? A roll-up update, something like that. I think that's what Windows calls it. So this is similar, where it includes everything that you might have missed. So go ahead and install this one, and it should catch you up.
And one last question here. Who should we contact if the GLM is not updating?
Well, that's one of the things we keep an eye on in the NWS chat. And so put a note in NWS chat, and someone from TOWR-S should be able to respond fairly quickly to that. As for, I guess I'll defer to Lee on more details on who might be some direct contacts on the GLM data feed.
Thanks, John. Yeah, for GLM any outages, any and all, please contact us. You can email, phone, cell phone. Josie and I keep our phone numbers over there at the Rock. And yeah, anytime, 24/7, call us, and we'll check that out. Make sure that we can assist with whatever information we know about it as well. And as John said with the chat, our team checks that and is on that routinely.
Okay, thank you so much. Just in the chat here, we got Joe Zajic talking about the Geocolor install, which is new. They are working it through checkout sites now and to be ready for field-wide installation next week. Look for a Tower mailer to that with specific instructions and support contacts. Each install stands alone. It does not depend on any previous installs. Okay, we'll give a brief 5-second pause here for any last-second questions. And while we wait, I will thank John, Lee, and our TOWR-S team one last time, not only for their presentation today, but also for all the great support that they provide to our field offices. And if you haven't had a chance to get in touch with them, please do. They are there to help. And speaking on behalf of the Office of Observations, I'm glad to have the TOWR-S team supporting the Weather Service. So seeing no other questions come in, we'll leave it there for today. For our shift workers, if you're off this weekend, I hope you have a restful Memorial Day weekend, and do take some time to reflect on the reason for the Memorial Day and the sacrifices that some have given for our country. Hope you'll be able to join us Thursday, June 3rd, 12 noon. We'll be talking about lightning and IDSS. Until then, thanks a lot. Stay well.